the better to disguise the sardonic smile that had begun to curve them.
"Are there others, Mr. Keynes?" he murmured.
Once he felt certain of his ability to keep any hint of pleasure from his voice. He had long since provided a reasonable excuse for his interest in how Blackadder got on. Patron, Graham had described himself. Investor. Interested party. Nonetheless, he wondered from time to time whether Keynes suspected the truth, whether he knew he was, in fact, delivering every scathing review to the playwright himself.
"Surely, my lord, what I've read is sufficient to—"
Graham opened his eyes and fixed his secretary with a look. Briefly meeting Graham's gaze from behind smudged spectacles, Keynes gulped and began once more to rummage through his battered leather portfolio. Everything about Simon Keynes was thin. His gaunt frame clad in an earthy grey woolen coat, the precise shade of which blended almost seamlessly into the stone wall behind him. His lips perpetually pursed, his hair. At long last he retrieved what appeared to be a magazine from his satchel.
"This is the final item I collected, my lord. Of a rather different character than most."
A different character. Had Keynes saved the best, or rather the worst, for last? Graham dipped his chin once to signal the secretary to read it. Keynes fumbled about for a moment, tucking the portfolio awkwardly beneath one arm, and then drawing his thumbnail along the edge of the pages, a hurried attempt to find his place that did not reward his effort. He had to flip back and forth a few pages at a time until he found what he was looking for. Once more he cleared his throat sharply before he began.
"Vice is its own reward. Presents a series of vignettes on society's hypocrisy and double-dealing in matters of business, acts of parliament, and even marriage vows. One cannot shake the impression that Mr. Blackadder feels himself a man out of time. Perhaps if he had written at the start of the last century instead of the start of this one, his wit wouldn't have gone so unappreciated by the critics."
Something prickled along Graham's skin. A curious sort of agitation, and his pulse increased by a beat or two. The sensation was akin to the sort of wariness one felt when passing along an unfamiliar wooded path, where the crackle in the undergrowth might be something small and unthreatening, or something considerably more dangerous.
"On the bawdy restoration stage, or circulating in salons among the great Augustan satirists, Mr. Blackadder would surely have felt more at home, albeit humbled, one hopes, in the presence of their brilliance. Since his lot has fallen to us, however, rather than our great-great-grandparents."
Graham had the distinct impression the reviewer knew precisely how many greats.
"One might be forgiven for finding it curious that he persists in directing the jibes of an earlier age at the fashionable foibles of his present audience. If Mr. Blackadder wishes to mend our ways by making us laugh at ourselves, he might do better to let us in on the joke."
Graham couldn't contain a derisive snort. Every Ransom Blackadder play ridiculed its audience outrageously, duping people into mean-spirited mockery at their own expense. His work never hinted that he believed people might, in a moment of sober reflection, recognize their own flaws and fix them. He made it perfectly obvious he felt them incapable of improvement.